Hey everybody, welcome back to The Stuff of Legend. My name is D'Lo. I've got another video for you guys, and today we're going to be breaking down Sony versus Disney. Who is really to blame for Spider-Man leaving the MCU? This is a topic that has come up very recently, and it was so recent that I was finally getting around to doing my Far From Home videos. A lot of projects involving Spider-Man and Spider-Man Far From Home, the future of the MCU Spider-Man, and then this happens. It comes out in an article. I'm gonna go ahead and switch my screen so that you guys can see this. It's actually quite a sad turn of events, and we're still waiting. Okay, so before we jump to any definite conclusions, I'll tell you what's going on. I'll tell you what we know so far. I'll give you my thoughts and my opinions based on the facts. I'll put all the links to everything is going to be in the description, so you guys can do your homework. You can take a look at these things for yourself. But there's a lot of people seeing this news that Sony has pulled out of the MCU contract, basically, a lot of articles online are running with this headline: Sony is backing out of the MCU with Spider-Man, and Spider-Man will no longer be part of the MCU because Sony is backing away from the deal with Kevin Feige and with Marvel Studios. And although part of that is true, it is not a false statement. You have to look at why that happened. You have to look at why are they backing out. Were they given a choice? What choices were they given? What was the deal? What was happening that caused them to leave? And then we can make a rational decision for ourselves as to whose fault it is and who we ought to be addressing when we do our rage posts. Like, for instance, almost everybody I know online was going out and saying, screw you, Sony. Give us back Spider-Man. Give back Spider-Man to the MCU. Spider-Man belongs with Marvel, and you're being a jerk for taking him. We're going to boycott all your films, blah blah blah. And to me, it didn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense why Sony would want to back out. They're making a lot of money working with Marvel, and they've been doing it of their own accord. This has been something that Sony has done willingly. Now, I'll give some examples of some other studios and other situations where there have been people that could have been in the same situation as Sony, and yet they said, you know what, no thanks, we don't really want to play ball. And then I'll talk about some examples of where Marvel has failed in that too. So we'll get to this. Let me just go ahead and shift my screen over, and we can start to look at this Deadline article. Okay, so this is the article that broke the news by Mike Fleming, August 20th, 2019. That was 5 days ago, okay? So I know I've waited on this a little bit, but that's because we did not have all of the facts. If you guys follow me on my Instagram, I was talking about it a lot there, but I would give my opinions, my thoughts, but at the end of it, I would say we need more clarity. We need more information. And so let's go ahead and take a look at this. So the headline reads, Disney-Sony standoff ends Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige's involvement with Spider-Man. And then it says here, updated at 8:55 p.m. PT with Sony response. So it says, Sony Pictures spent much of yesterday trying to spin Deadline about the prospective loss of Kevin Feige from future Spider-Man films. First, the studio downplayed the idea that he might be leaving. Then, insiders pinned his exit on added responsibilities from the Fox acquisition of the X-Men franchise, though they declined to make a statement. All this was reflected as factors in Deadline's break of an important and widely regurgitated story. The sources maintained that Feige's exit was about money. It was about Disney seeking a 50-50 co-finance stake. Sources said the original Disney ask was more reasonable, and we'll get to that in just a second. But as the price of Marvel and Feige's continued guiding hand that resulted in the delivery of Sony's biggest grossing film ever, meaning Far From Home being the highest grossing film for Spider-Man of all time, which is true. Sony declined to meet those terms or even counter with anything worth considering. It was an aggressive stance by Disney, which already owns the merchandising on Spider-Man. This right here, do not let this slip past you. We will circle back to this very shortly, and this is a major factor in why this deal, I think, and I think you might as well once we look at the facts, is so lopsided, is so unfair, and why it's so outrageous for Marvel and Disney to approach Sony in this way. And I'll talk about that in just a minute as well. And a tough nut for Sony to swallow, giving up half of its most valuable franchise. And we'll also talk about that. But these talks had been going on for some time. Had Sony agreed to Disney's ask, Marvel and Kevin Feige would not have withdrawn from the Spider-Man films, sources said. There's more to this article, but before we get going, I want to go back and just talk with you guys a little bit about what's going on here, okay? So I want to let you know what the current arrangement for Disney is, and the current arrangement for Marvel as of before the 20th, before these talks broke down and they decided to hang on, at least for the time being, we're going to cease involvement with Kevin Feige. What happened was, back in, I think it was 2014 or 15, when they were talking about Captain America Civil War and having Spider-Man appear in the MCU for the first time with Tom Holland. So, there was a lot of things going on. Marvel did not own Fox, or rather Disney didn't own Fox, and Marvel didn't have the rights to the Fox characters. There was like the Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, Galactus. A lot of characters like the X-Men were not allowed into the MCU because they didn't have those movie rights. And there's a lot of other characters out there, Namor, the Hulk, that have complicated movie rights situations, but also one of them being Spider-Man and about 900 other properties that involve Spider-Man, other characters that are in that universe that belong to Sony that they can use in their films. And they didn't have to share. But what happens is, you have Fox saying, screw you, Marvel, we're never going to let you use our characters. It's us and it's us alone. We want to make all the money from all of our movies, which they had the right to do. They bought those rights, which sucked for fans because we wanted them to join. A lot of us wanted them to join. Some did not. But nevertheless, you have other studios like Sony who then come to the table and say, you know what? We've made a bunch of movies on our own, but we really like working with Kevin Feige. We like having him as a consultant. And you know what? You guys have an amazing thing going on in the MCU. We would love to join that project. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow you, Marvel Disney, to have Spider-Man in the MCU whenever you want to do a crossover film for free. You can use him, and that's going to bring a lot of money and people, fans of the Spider-Man franchise, to your Avengers films who may not have gone apart from Spider-Man's involvement. And so it brings a lot more people to the ticket stands, to the booths, and to fill those theater seats. But it also does something else there. It also brings merchandising sales, because no one on Earth sells more toys than Spider-Man. And so we'll talk about how big merchandising is, because that's really where making money happens. That's where Disney and Marvel and Star Wars and like Pixar and a lot of these other franchise type films make all of their money, is through merchandising and licensing rather than actually making the films, which makes them a lot of money, but not nearly in comparison to the merchandising. I will show you guys what we're talking about in just a second. But before we get there, I wanted to let you guys know that the current deal involved Marvel gets to use Spider-Man whatever they want for free. There was going to be several films that Sony was going to make. They were going to put all the money in and finance it the whole time, because obviously it's their character, it's their rights. They don't want to lose the rights, so they have to finance their film themselves. But they're being super generous and saying, you know what? We want him in the MCU, so Kevin Feige, come over. You can help be the creative officer of our films. Do what you want with these films, but we will finance it. We will, distribute. We're going to do everything ourselves. You don't pay a single dime, and yet you're going to make a lot of money. We'll give you the 5%. I think it's 5%. What's called first dollar gross. So when everyone floods to the pre-ticket sales, and when they buy the tickets on the first day of the opening showings for Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man Homecoming, those films, Disney gets a 5% cut of the opening weekend box office. And if you look at box office numbers, it starts with the opening weekend way up here, and then the next week it drops down usually 50%, and then it goes down again and again and again, and it just kind of exponentially curves down until there's no more money to make at the box office, and they pull the film out. So with that being said, when you get first dollar gross, that's huge. That's a big deal. So Sony said Marvel, Disney can have first dollar gross, and they can also have the 5% of the total gross, and then they also get the 100% of the merchandising rights to Spider-Man. That is huge. Licensing and merchandising is massive. I'll show you guys what we're talking about in just a second. So, and I'll talk about what Sony makes as well. So Sony makes money on the box office, but you're going to see that the merchandising makes several times more than the box office ever could. And I'll give you guys examples, and then we'll just kind of leave that to either imagination. I'll let you guys explore that for yourselves and weigh it in your own balance, okay? So this 50-50 co-finance stake, there's more to this than meets the eye. When you have if it just said split the profit 50-50, then that's one thing. But what co-finance means is that if you're co-financing the film, as I understand it, it also means that you get a controlling say in the property rights to those films. So if you're making Spider-Man films, anyone that's in that property range, anyone that's in the Spider-Man category for film rights, you get that stake. You get that 50% financing stake, and you get control over those characters. That's something that Sony, that's their biggest cash cow. That's Sony's biggest cash cow. No film for Sony has ever made more, ever, in the history of Sony films ever, than Spider-Man Far From Home. And yes, it's due to a mutual agreement where Sony was being very kind, very generous with Marvel, and Marvel was teeing them up to be massive, successful films. It was a beautiful marriage that allowed these two companies to benefit greatly and make very successful films that fans would love and everybody would love and get on board with. So, but keep in mind, Sony is still their own company. Sony is still their own production company. They're not trying to lose their number one IP. They're not trying to lose their number one franchise and basically have another company call the shots on those types of films. If they want to be able to make Venom in a separate universe and do whatever they want with it, they should be able to. I really liked Venom. I know a lot of people might not have liked Venom, or maybe not liked it a lot. Maybe they liked it a little bit. Maybe they liked it a ton. Maybe it's their favorite film. It's irrelevant. It's successful. Venom was greatly successful. It made over $880 million. That's massive. That's more than most of the Spider-Man films made. And we'll talk about those as well. I'll show you guys that side by side with the Spider-Man films, because we're going to get into some of those numbers after we finish this article. But this is a big deal. So when it says Marvel comes to the table with 50-50, it's not saying just 50-50 splitting the money going into the film or the money that they earn from the film. It's also talking about the rights. They get half of the rights. They get half the stake to the rights of Spider-Man. And this is like a fine print type of thing that a lot of people don't know, but if it's something that they're sneaking in. And I'll show you guys why this is important and why I think this is what it was all about in the first place, is because Disney's already making a truckload more than Sony is on these deals, because they're putting no money in. They're getting almost all of the money back out, significantly more than Sony's making. And I'll prove that. So we have, it says again, we've read all this. Wait, did I cover? I know that I said I was going to cover. Where did I show this? Merchandising on Spider-Man. Yeah, I'll show you this really quick. Sony declined to meet the terms. This is an interesting point, guys. So Marvel comes at it saying we want 50-50 co-finance. I don't see anything explicitly laying out here that it says that they wanted to add to or create a new agreement. So it looks like they were saying they want a raise, which does not imply that all the previous things they had, like merchandising and those other things, were going to be stripped from them. I believe they still have all of those. There's nothing that I've found online that says that they were going to walk backwards with what they were earning, only that they were trying to get a raise. So right now they don't have co-finance stake. What they do have is 5% gross. And what they were asking was 50. That's 10 times the amount they're making right now on gross from the box office. So this is talking about box office dollars, guys. But that's also, again, it's not including merchandising. Let's talk really quick. Before we go down, before we go any further, let's read this and then the next section. And then I know this is a little bit. We don't have to go all the way down because it does kind of rabbit trail a little bit. But let's just read this next paragraph. Just to make sure that we cover some of the details here so you guys can be aware. So Sony issued a statement late in the evening not denying anything that Deadline revealed yesterday, but reiterating its stance that Feige was too busy. And it says here it seems like spin, but both sides are spinning, and I'll show you why. It says Deadline stands squarely behind its reporting, meaning that other articles came out and said that like Disney offered, they basically said, no, just give us 30%. That's not what happened here. And Deadline is saying, no, guys, you're wrong. It was 50-50, not 70-30. What happened was Sony came back saying, we're not going to do 50-50. We need control of our characters. But if you want a raise, we can do 70-30. Would you agree to those terms where you put in 30% to the film's, to the budget? We'll pull in 70. You can return 30. You'll get 30% of the return. We will give you that raise, but we're not going to surrender the rights to the character. And Marvel walked away from the deal. Marvel didn't say, you know what? Hey, Sony, let's negotiate a little bit more because we want to get Kevin Feige paid. Can we just get a little bit more on the money? No, that's not what happened. They said, Sony, we want to renegotiate terms. You just had your biggest movie because of us. So here's the deal. Either you give us 50% of the rights to all your characters, 50% co-finance, we will put in the money, but we're going to get half the return on the gross, keep the merchandising, keep the 5%, and we're also going to gain control of those characters. And you will get less. You're going to get less money on the gross. We're not going to surrender any of the merchandising. And if you don't accept this, we walk away from the deal. Marvel was the one that put the it's almost like extortion or blackmail, or it's like an ultimatum where they said, you're going to surrender the rights to your characters or we walk away. And to me, that's a very shameful way to do business with someone that's been so extremely eager and generous to give you more than they're making on their own properties in order to please the fans, in order to get people psyched for Spider-Man, to make money, but to do it in a way where they were actually being quite selfless with the way they were making money. Marvel was benefiting much more out of this deal than Sony ever was. Even though they were at the time making 95% of the box office gross, as far as percent of, other than the first dollar, which is huge. But then the merchandising rights, all of that goes to Marvel, and they don't have to pay a dime to get them in their movies. So not only do they make money on Homecoming and Far From Home, which are the movies that Sony makes money on, but Marvel also gets to make Sony type money from Civil War, from Infinity War, and from Endgame. The crossover films that involve Spider-Man, they get to merchandise, they get to license out toys, backpacks, lunchboxes, to make nothing but sheer just cash. And I'll show you guys. So you know what? Before we go on, I want to show you guys. Let's leave this one here. Let's go here and talk about the merchandising. Here's an article from Ranker, okay? So an article from Ranker shows the movies that made more money on merchandising than at the box office. It's not actually talking about 10 movies. It's talking about franchises. So it's more than just 10 movies. But let's just look. Star Wars. It talks here. It says Star Wars films were originators of the idea that merchandise sales could drive your fandom and to love your products more than the actual film. Since A New Hope was released in 1977, Star Wars has been more than the fight between the light and the dark side of the Force. It's been toys, apparel, video games, even toasters that burn Darth Vader's face onto your bread. According to Nielsen, analysts, while The Force Awakens was $2 billion in ticket sales, which is box office dollars, Star Wars merchandising was nearing $5 billion or $6 billion in its own fiscal year. So in the same year that The Force Awakens brought in $2 billion, $5 or $6 billion was made on toys, lunchboxes, and other merchandise. So licensing and merchandise made approximately 3 times more on Star Wars than the actual tickets sales did. So keep that in mind, okay? I know this is Star Wars, this is not Marvel, but I promise you, it's actually a lot better for Marvel than it was for Star Wars. Let's keep looking. Harry Potter. So it says the Harry Potter movies were a financial juggernaut. When everything was said and done, and the franchise had wrapped, the films had made $7.7 billion in global box office sales. So tickets sold, people going to see the movie. But that's nothing compared to the merchandising, thanks to book sales, toys, scarves, and little things called the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. The merchandising franchise was worth an estimated $15 billion. Almost that's about 2 times what they made at the box office. And it says when Universal Islands of Adventure in Orlando opened Wizarding World in 2010, attendance increased 20%, and the park's overall revenue went up by 41%. And by the way, Marvel has been capitalizing on this. Disney has capitalized on Marvel having Spider-Man as well. So this is something that they've been doing as well down at Disneyland, which I'm not sure will continue, but we'll see. It says here, it says Axio money bags, Axio money bags. Martin Palicki, editor-in-chief of In Park Magazine, noted one of the biggest reasons the Potter franchise is so big has to do with the cross-gender appeal. He told the Los Angeles Times that means double the number of ones you can sell. They made a lot of money, $15 billion, as opposed to $7.7 billion at the box office. Now, this keep in mind that if you were to add both of these together, that's a lot of money, right? So like 15 plus 7.7, what is that? 22.7 billion, is that correct? But you're making a lot of money on these films, and obviously the split with the Marvel is going to be a little different. This is where we get it says all of these Marvel movies. Now keep in mind, I think this article was probably written in 2015. And I can't find anywhere on this article to verify the date that it was written. However, I'm just going on by the numbers they're citing here. So the numbers they're citing here are up to 2014, but let's take a look. It says it's surprising to no one that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has made close to $10 billion in worldwide theatrical sales and this is up to 2014 approximately. So I think this was right around Age of Ultron came out, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's correct. I think it was Age of Ultron. It says they're Disney movies about superheroes. It would be shocking if they ever lost money. But the real money is in the MCU, is not in the theater. It's in the merch. And this is where it pertains to us now, because this is the same agreement that Disney makes with Sony. Is merchandising and licensing is 100% in the hands of Marvel Disney. Okay, not Sony. So check this out. It says in 2014, Disney's CEO Bob Iger told CNBC that Marvel's brand has arrived and it's very healthy. But how much is the MCU bringing in with its licensing deals? License Global says that Disney made $41 billion off of licensing in 2013. Which is frankly, it says here too much money. But check this out. The comparison here is not $10 billion to 41. It said that the MCU altogether made $10 billion worldwide. So that's not just saying in 2013 like the merch did in 1 year. 1 year, $41 billion in merch. It took approximately, what is that? From 2008, so 8 to 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's the first 5 years of Marvel. So maybe it was right around the time Avengers had just ended. And so I could have been off on those numbers, but basically up until Avengers. Sorry, not Age of Ultron, the first one. But think about that, guys. In all the Marvel films, $10 billion is what it made worldwide in 5 years. But in 1 year, just 2013, it made $41 billion off of licensing. Four times the amount of money it took them 5 years to make in films. Think about that. Now, if you multiply that by the amount of fans that have grown since then, now we have 22 films in the MCU, and we're talking about adding Spider-Man into the mix. Now you're talking about freaking bonkers dollars that is coming in for Marvel every time they get to put Sony's character, Sony's Spider-Man, into the MCU. They're making ludicrous money. This was back when the Avengers came out. Not Age of Ultron, not Civil War, not Infinity War, not Endgame. We're talking now. The amount of money they must be making year over year is way higher than $41 billion. I promise you that. I promise you that. And that's year over year. Up to that point. Up to 2013. We're in 2019 now, fellas. It's getting ridiculous. And so the amount of money they must be making. Now let's take a look at this. So let's jump over here to the box office. Okay, let's just look at the box office. I've heard a lot of people asking the question: can Spider-Man work outside of the MCU? Or the opposite question: can the MCU work without Spider-Man? The answer here to both is yes. Yes, it can work. Are they going to have to reboot Spider-Man because they can't use Iron Man, Happy Hogan, Pepper Potts? They can't use the Stark Building. They can't use any of the stuff they've centered Spider-Man around. It's gonna be tough. They may have to soft reboot or full reboot. They have Tom Holland on contract for 2 more films. So I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna have to reboot, but it can work. And here's how we know it can work. I heard a bunch of people saying that Spider-Man can't work outside of the MCU because Sony doesn't know how to make Spider-Man films, and that's ludicrous. That is some of the dumbest nonsensical information I've ever read online. Because look at this. I'm gonna go down to worldwide. Look at these worldwide numbers unadjusted for inflation. You take Spider-Man Far From Home clearly made a lot of money. I think it's still in the theaters. So it made $1.1114 billion worldwide. That's their biggest haul. But look at this. As far as live action Spider-Man films go, this is really impressive. Because all of them, except for Into the Spider-Verse, made over $700 million. My friends, that is called a blockbuster film. $700 million is a blockbuster. That is crazy money. That is amazing money. Even the crappiest film of them, in my opinion, probably either Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2. Those are the worst ones of the bunch. All the other ones are freaking awesome in their own right. I mean, some people don't like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Some people don't like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. But it doesn't change the fact that Spider-Man 3, the trashiest one of them all, arguably, made $890 million, just shy of $900 million. That's crazy. Spider-Man Homecoming made less than that at $880.2 million. And then Spider-Man, the first one with Tobey Maguire, made $821 million. Spider-Man 2 made $783.8 million. Some people revere Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire as the best comic book film of all time. A lot of people do. And I'm not saying that it is. I don't even know that I agree that is. But it's still a really great movie. And even though it's almost 20 years old, you talk about, well, not 20. I think it's probably almost 15 years old now. But it's getting up there. And for the technology of the day, for the CGI they had at the time, really great stuff. Really great stuff. In fact, I think that Amazing Spider-Man, as good as I thought the first Amazing Spider-Man was I think it's still not as good as Spider-Man 1 or 2 with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and it's not as good as Homecoming or Far From Home, in my opinion. But again, everyone has their own opinion. That's totally subjective, not objective. But these numbers are objective. This is truth. This is not debatable. This is what it made. And so Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, you might say, that only made 375.5. Well, they actually spent significantly less on that being an animated film. Plus, and it did make a lot of money. It actually grossed quite a bit. And it won an Oscar. It won Best Animated Film of the year that it came out in. 2018. So that's really good. I think it's the only one that did win an Oscar, which is super impressive. And it came out of left field. Not a lot of people knew about it, but when it came out, it just took the world by storm. Many people have already decided and said that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is their favorite Spider-Man film. It's one of mine for sure, but I still prefer the MCU Spider-Mans, Homecoming, and Far From Home. I genuinely love those films. And if you guys are already confused, I don't want Spider-Man to be outside of the MCU. But he absolutely can work outside of the MCU. So I want him in. If we have to vote, if we're voting, put him in or take him out, I say put him in. I don't want him out. I do not want Spider-Man outside of the MCU. But it's stupid to say that he can't work outside of the MCU. Financially, he can work outside of the MCU. Critically, he can work outside of the MCU under Sony. We know that's a fact because all of these films, except for Homecoming and Far From Home, were Sony exclusive. They weren't made by Marvel. They weren't co-made by Marvel. These were Sony films. And yes, they can do a great job. Now, did Spider-Man 3 fall short? Yes, absolutely it did. But it was still a juggernaut at the box office. Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Yes, it was a piece of crap and it sucked. but it's still a juggernaut at the box office. It's foolishness to say that Sony can't make a Spider-Man film and they can't make a good one because they've got some of the best of all time as far as comic book movies go. And they still have some of the most financially successful comic book movies of all time. Now, granted, we have the MCU now. The MCU has set a new precedent with dollars making money, that kind of thing. But you'd be surprised to find out there's almost every single film on this list has made more than most of the MCU films from the original like the Phase 1. Let me see if I can pull up Iron Man box office MOJO. Yeah, look. So you see this? Iron Man 1 made $318 million. That's less than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, guys. And same with Iron Man 2. 312 made less than Iron Man 1. And then same thing. It made less than Into the Spider-Verse. And then you talk about Iron Man 3. That finally made more. Iron Man 3 made 409. But that's still less than almost every single Spider-Man film ever made, except for Into the Spider-Verse. And Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse won an Oscar. It holds 98% on Rotten Tomatoes even today. That's crazy good. And that's another thing I wanted to show you guys. Every Spider-Man film Rotten Tomatoes score. Check this out. I don't know if this is the one. I don't know if this is the article I was looking up. No, this is not. This can't be it. No. Check this out. I think it might be this one. Is this it? No, that's not it. I'll show you guys right now. I saw a sweet article about every Spider-Man film Rotten Tomatoes. Let me see. I think this is it right here. I think this is the article. Yeah, this is it right here. So sorry for that delay, guys, but this is going to be worth it for you guys to see. So if you check this out with me, just go along with me here. So the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score here is the Amazing Spider-Man 2. No doubt. I'm sure that probably was the weakest one. But it has 52%. That's not a good movie.
But we already know it's not a good movie,
and it's still made.
Amazing Spider-Man 2 made $709 million at the box office, guys. But let's go on. Let's take a look again. So we have here the next one. And by the way, 52% means half the critics gave it a over 70% score. 70% is the line where it says this film is either decent or it sucks. So 70% is where it is. And what 52% means is 52% of all of the critics voted somewhere above 72. So that means half the critics gave it a moderate score. Or a good score, moderate to good. So that's what that means. Now let's go to the next crappy one. Spider-Man 3, which by the way is a financial juggernaut. 63% of critics gave it over 70%. That's not bad. I mean, it's not great. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. But they didn't absolutely outright hate it. You know what I mean? So there was at least 63% of critics gave it a moderate score. And so we look here again. Spider-Man 3 comes in at a whopping $890 million at the box office, guys. That's huge. Those are big time numbers. Can Spider-Man work outside the MCU? It already has. Let's keep going. I want to let you guys know because this is also going to tie back to why the deal is so raw for Sony and for Marvel that Marvel gave Sony an ultimatum, and we can't figure out why in the world they would do that other than they wanted control of the rights because they're already making most of the money. Let's take a look. Amazing Spider-Man comes in at 72%. That means 72%. A majority of critics gave it above a 70% score, which is pretty good. That means a lot of people liked it. It doesn't mean it's a great movie. It means that critics at least which usually they're pretty harsh on these things. They at least like the movie for the most part. Most of them mostly like the film. And then we again take this to the box office. We see Amazing Spider-Man down here at 757.9. That's really good. That's a really good box office return for a movie with 72%. That's amazing, actually. Not to invoke a pun there. But Spider-Man Far From Home. This one is a tie for the next biggest. So that was number 6. Here's number 5. Spider-Man Far From Home got 90% Rotten Tomatoes score. That's awesome. That means 9 out of 10 or 90 out of 100 critics reviewed this movie and gave it over a 70% score. That speaks very well for this film. And we take a look at the box office, and it's the highest grossing Spider-Man film of all time, with only 90%. I say only 90, but 90 compared to where we're going with the rest of these films. For Rotten Tomatoes score, $1.1 billion. That's gigantic. And again, this movie they're splitting the money profits with, and Marvel gets the licensing rights. Marvel gets to license out the toys. 100% lunchboxes, backpacks, t-shirts, all of that. Every toasters, everything you could possibly imagine that you can merchandise and license out to purchase other than a ticket. Marvel gets to do. They're making bonkers dollars on this, guys. Ludicrous dollars. And $1.111 billion is what Sony is splitting with Marvel already. Sony gets about they say on paper it's about 95%, while Marvel gets a 5% and first dollar gross, which is really big. So it's technically more than just 5%, but it's the 5% with first dollar gross. So it's probably somewhere realistically box office dollars wise about probably 90% or 92% that Sony takes home. Marvel takes the rest. And they get the merchandising. So that's a freaking... And Marvel doesn't pay a dime either. It's free money. It's free money for them to have Spider-Man in their movie. And it's free money for them to make money off of Far From Home and off of Homecoming. Because they didn't put a single dollar into that film. probably just to fly out for the press tour. That's it. That's probably it. And so then we go back. Let's continue down this train of thought. Okay. I want to just drill this home. The first Spider-Man also holds 90% as a Rotten Tomatoes score. Okay, so this is the very first one with Sam Raimi's Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and this one also has $821 million at the box office. Gargantuan, super huge, especially for back in that day. Gosh, what an amazing legacy to have for Sony. And if anyone tries to tell you that this movie was not good, you gotta ask them why. A lot of the time it comes down to they didn't like Tobey Maguire. It's like, okay, but that still doesn't mean the movie's bad. That still doesn't, maybe they didn't like the Green Goblin as a suit. Maybe they wanted him to like be green and transform and have the makeup. I understand that. I appreciate that. I'm a comic book originalist. I totally am. But at the same time, if you look at the context as a whole and what they were trying to do, you can rationalize it, and like at the same time, you don't have to. It's your opinion. But facts don't care about your feelings. 90% Rotten Tomatoes score means that critics, 9 out of 10 critics, or 90 out of 100 critics like the film. A lot. And so let's go on. Back to we already did that box office. When we talk about Homecoming, it's 92% of critics like Spider-Man Homecoming. That's really good. And Homecoming made more than Spider-Man number one. It made $880.2 million with M million. And that's nothing. That's nothing to be like, oh wow, that's not a you didn't make $1 billion. It takes a lot to make $1 billion. And we get spoiled as film fans because we see movies like the MCU getting pumped out left and right. But keep in mind, it took Sony almost 20 years to make $1 billion movie. Most of their films were coming in around $700 million, which is gargantuan. That's massively successful. And they finally cracked this. But what did they get for it? Marvel comes to the table and says, you either acquiesce to our request or take a hike and we're done. And that's extortion. That's like you have someone that comes to you and says, "Hey there, friend. I see that you want to play with my toys. I would like to loan you my toys. Spider-Man is my toy. You can play with Spider-Man. I'm not even going to charge you. And if you make any money, just give me the box office return and anything you make from everyone else wanting to play with Spider-Man." You can have those dollars. And so you get like technically it's like 10% of all the money being made, and 90% is really going to Marvel, and they don't have to pay anything for the toy. They get to borrow the toy. And so now Marvel comes to the table and says, we want all your toys. And we want control of that. We want to be able to say whenever we want him, we get him. We get to say whatever we want to do with those toys. We get to do if we want to cut off an arm, we can do that. If we want to make this character a man or a woman or whatever, we want to be able to do that. And Sony says, no, I was letting you play with my toys. How about maybe I just let you borrow them on Tuesdays? And he says, no, I want your toys whenever I want them, however I want them, and I'll do with them whatever I want. Maybe I'll pay you for it a little bit. I'll pay you half, but I still want all the money from the returns, and I'm going to keep your toys. And Sony says, sorry, that's not going to be a thing. I thought we were going somewhere nice with this friendship, but obviously you're just being a jerk. So sorry. I guess we're done if you don't want to play anymore. And so Marvel says, okay, screw you. And that's what's happening here. I'm just trying to show you guys like what the box office in this looks like, because can Spider-Man work outside of the MCU? 100%. He absolutely can. Do we want him to? No. But when you guys are like when people tweet out to Marvel saying screw, or to Sony saying screw you Sony for backing out of the MCU. You obviously don't know why. You obviously don't see what happened, because they didn't just walk away. Marvel gave them no choice. Disney gave them no choice. They said it's either this new deal where we get everything, or no deal. No more partnership. Either all or nothing. And Sony had no choice, because you can't take that. You can't take the deal that was offered. So when they countered and they said, you know what? Hey, how about we don't do 50-50 finance, because we still need our toys. These are our properties. We paid for them fair and square. And we're willing to share with you. But if you want to raise, can we do like 70-30? Are you willing to do 70-30? And Marvel said, no, screw you, all or nothing. That's not really a lot of options there. Like one side is willing to compromise. That's Sony. And Marvel said no compromise, all or nothing. And I'm being hyperbolic. Obviously, they still get 50. Sony still gets to keep 50% of the box office return. But that's it. Merchandising still stays with Marvel, and the character rights are now owned by Marvel for all the properties, except for I think it's Morbius, because it's technically already shot and ready to go. So I think Morbius would still be Sony's thing. But everything else, Venom 2, Black Cat, Kraven the Hunter, Silver Sable, all the other things that are in their wheelhouse that they want to make would no longer be under their control. They get co-financing. So it's like, what? Like, how could you even ask that? Like, I thought we were already being generous. Now you want to overstep and ask for so much more. Now, I'll give Disney the benefit of the doubt, guys. I know we're not even done with this article. 92%. I just want to leave you with this. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has 97%. 97% of critics love Into the Spider-Verse, or at least above 70% rating. And this thing actually, for the first week or two, held 100%. And then eventually it trickled down because some people were like, we don't like the animation. Literally the only thing they were complaining about, the animation's zany and we don't like it. It's like, okay, I guess that's a fair reason not to like the film, I guess. But it's still, they were all praising the story, praising the acting, praising the music, praising the everything, creativity. But they were like, yeah, I just didn't like the animation, so yeah, I'm not going to give it a good score. So that's what it was. But nevertheless, to me, it's pretty cut and dry. And obviously, we're still waiting. Other reports have said that Sony and Marvel, Disney Marvel, are still talking right now about Kevin Feige's involvement, because this whole thing, I believe, if the reports and the rumors are true, that Kevin Feige has been consulting for, I believe, for free. He's been producing, so I guess he's been bringing some, he's been producing it creatively with them, with Sony, but at the same time, now he's got so much more on his plate. Obviously, with the Disney Plus lineup, with the Disney lineup and the Marvel lineup, you see how busy Kevin Feige is going to be in the next 5 years, the next 10 years. And now they've got the X-Men to worry about, and the Fantastic Four, and the Silver Surfer, Galactus, all that stuff. And how is he going to continue to do that unless he's paid to do it? Because he's going to. I understand that. And so you take Sony saying, you know what? Hey, we still want you to get paid, but 50-50 gives you the rights to our characters we're not willing to give up. Please, how about 70-30? We'll give you 30%. That's still, I believe that's a 6 times percentage increase, because he's at 5% for the gross, for the box office. Now you go to 30%. If my math is correct, I think that's what, 6 times? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Yeah, that's 6 times. So you go six times what they're making now at the box office as a compromise. That's crazy good. And then they still say, no, screw you, that's not enough. We want half, and we want the rights to these films. So Sony just has to walk away. What are they going to do? You're not willing to compromise. You're not willing to be reasonable. We can't give you everything about this property. It's the most valuable property Sony's ever had. Ever. Men in Black's not worth that. Like, all the other properties they have are not worth that. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's crazy to think that that's what people are not understanding. So when you see people online and they're saying, screw you, Sony, they clearly haven't read the current agreement. They clearly don't understand what Marvel is getting right now. That's why I felt it was super important to get you guys understanding, if I'm not mistaken, this. It's the Ranker article that shows what merchandising and licensing does for your fandom. So you talk about that, and we've already done this, so I'm not going to harp on this too long. But in 5 years, you make $10 billion in worldwide theater sales. Nowadays, they're ramping up way more than that. But $10 billion on your first 5 or so films, and $41 billion was made off licensing in just 1 year. So 1 year, $41 billion. 5 years of movie ticket sales, $10 billion. Do the math in your head. That is so much more money from merchandising than you could ever get from box office. And that's part of Marvel Disney's agreement now, is whenever Spider-Man's in the MCU, they get 100% all
of the merchandising dollars from Spider-Man toy sales. And keep in mind, he's the most lucrative character they've ever had for merchandising. No other superhero in the world, not Superman, not Shazam, not Aquaman, not Batman. Spider-Man is the most lucrative character that has ever been produced for merchandising and licensing. They're hands down. There's no comparison. Spider-Man will always sell toys over any other character. No contest. No contest. And Disney still says, give us your property rights, 50% of the gross, and we're keeping merchandising, or we walk. That's extortion. That's not a deal. That's not fair in any way. The deal they have right now is not fair in any way, but Sony was gracious enough to hand them that deal, to say, here you go, Marvel, Disney. We want to play ball with you. Let's be friends. And Marvel said, give me that ball. It's mine now. And then he kicks it over the fence and says, go get it. That's what Disney's doing right now. And I'm like, dude, when people start to go off online about Marvel or Disney being right and Sony is a piece of crap for taking Spider-Man back, he's always been theirs. He's been theirs. The film rights were bought from Marvel a long time ago, guys. Way before the MCU. Sony bought Spider-Man fair and square to keep Marvel Comics alive as a company. I mean, that was Stan Lee's doing. Stan Lee sold him the film rights. And now you get Sony playing nice with Marvel and Marvel doing this. That's no way to treat your coworkers. That's no way to treat your colleagues. People that are working with you well and nice and being stupid generous, far more generous than anyone else ever would. Fox didn't do that. Fox said, screw you, Marvel, screw you, Disney, and screw the fans. We do not care about what is going to happen with you and your movie universe. We have our own thing going. Rightfully so, by the way. They had the rights. Like Sony, they bought the rights, but they were clearly not doing well with Fantastic Four. X-Men had a lot of great films. X-Men, I still love all the films for the most part, but still, they were like, we are not working with you. We're doing our own thing. And so eventually, the company started to take a dive, and Disney swooped in and bought Fox. Now they have those character rights, but it was not because Fox said, okay, we'll give you the rights. It's because they were going under. And they needed to sell the company as a whole. So all of Fox, not just the Fox film rights, all of Fox needed to be bought. So Disney said, that's ours. We get Hulu. We're going to get, I forgot what else was in there, ABC, Nat Geo. I mean, they already had ABC, but the character rights, the rights to Avatar, the rights to The Simpsons, all kinds of stuff. And that, you keep in mind, Disney's all about control. Disney bought Fox because they wanted control of Hulu. They wanted control of an entire streaming platform. They wanted, they wanted Avatar. They wanted The Simpsons. There's so many other properties. Alien vs. Predator, I think even, and a lot of other things they wanted because they're all about control. They want to control everything. And this move they're doing here is not about purely money. It's not about pure money. It's mostly about control. It's about controlling the rights. Otherwise, they would have compromised and said 70-30 works for us, because they'd still be making 90% of the money that was coming in from all of the Spider-Man films and Spider-Man's involvement in the MCU films, bringing fans of Spider-Man to those seats, buying the tickets and buying the merch, buying the Funko Pops, buying the t-shirts, lunch boxes, backpacks, action figures, you name it, everything. And even the Hot Wheels of Spider-Man, all of it. And so that's more or less what's happening there. Let me just go ahead over to the live questions. I'm going to take a live question real quick. All right, it says, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homeless. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Spider-Man 3 might be, that's actually a good name for it, Spider-Man Homeless. Spider-Man Home Invasion, Spider-Man Homeward Bound, maybe going back home to Sony. Spider-Man, if you give me enough time, I'll come up with a list of possible names for Spider-Man 3, whether it is or is not in the MCU. Now, I wanted to just go ahead and show you guys, in the days that has been since this news broke, it's been about
almost miserable days, except for the D23 stuff, but which I will be making another video about. But here we have who's to blame for the Sony Disney Marvel drama regarding Spider-Man. And a lot of people were saying Sony. Oops. But we also have 58% are saying Disney Marvel. And I think the more that people read into the actual articles beyond the headlines, the more you can start to get the facts and piece together who is actually to blame for this drama. Who's to blame for Sony having to take Spider-Man back? They didn't pull Spider-Man because they're being jerks. They didn't pull Spider-Man because they want Spider-Man out of the MCU. No. They wanted Spider-Man in the MCU. That's why it was always Amy Pascal coming in interviews and making Kevin Feige look awkward, because she was always like, yeah, totally. Venom could totally join the MCU. And Kevin Feige's like, oh, we don't know about that just yet. You know, and then and she was always like, no, of course, Spider-Man will be in the MCU. Of course it's going to be. She was so all about, and then even the new management, yes, Spider-Man in the MCU, let's do it all day. And it's such a lopsided deal too. Sony makes like this much when Marvel's money, Disney's money is through the freaking roof. And now you have Disney coming back to Sony saying that's not enough. Now we want control of your franchises, and we want to make half of the box office as opposed to first dollar and 5% plus merchandising. That's so legitimately unfair. It's not fair of them to ask that. They can ask for a raise for Kevin Feige's sake, for sure. Totally. But no, they can't ask for the rights. I mean, it's almost like, how dare you? You know what I mean? Like, they're already giving you the right to use the characters. But now you're just saying, we want to have control regardless of your say. Agree to a 50-50 financing deal that will allow us control of your character properties. No. Because then you're going to fork in half the money for the films. Big deal. Like, what? That's not that much more. They're already making a killing on just using Spider-Man movies they were already going to make anyway, like Captain America Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. They didn't need Spider-Man for those films. They didn't need him at all. But they used him because, of course, people want him. Of course, the fans are going to do that. Of course, they're going to benefit from it. But they don't need it. They don't need that. All the other like you asked, does the MCU work without Spider-Man? Doctor Strange did. Guardians of the Galaxy did. Thor did. Captain America did. Obviously, Civil War had Spider-Man in there, but that was a last-minute ad. It was going to work either way. You know, like you talk about any of the films in the MCU except for Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, and then arguably Civil War, arguably Infinity War, arguably Endgame. Those films needed Spider-Man. None of the other MCU films did. So if you ask, can the MCU go on without Spider-Man? Yep, yes it can. Because it already has. It went all the way up to Civil War without him. And even from Civil War to Infinity War, all the films in between that did not have Spider-Man, and they 100% worked. All the films between, I think there's only 2 films, but 2 films between Infinity War and Endgame, Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel, they both did not have Spider-Man, and they both worked. So then you talk about, just the Spider-Man films and the crossovers. That's it. Those are the only ones that had Spider-Man, and they could have worked without him. They wouldn't have been as good, in my opinion. I don't think they would have been as good. I love Spider-Man, and I think he drastically improves those films with him in it. I want Spider-Man in the MCU. But what needs to happen, guys, Sony is not the one that needs to come back to the table. Marvel, Disney needs to get on their hands and knees and say, listen, we're really sorry. We really would like to make a killing on the merchandising for Spider-Man toys if you'll let us use him again. So please, we will accept a 70-30 deal. Can we at least talk about maybe can we buy a couple of properties from you that we want desperately? Can we maybe buy Kraven the Hunter from you? Can we buy, someone else from, who do we need to buy from you to make our goals work? Can we come to the table and talk about those things? Because obviously you guys aren't down to sell all of your rights or have us have a 50% controlling 50% control of all of the properties. So can we at least negotiate some characters we might have had plans for, we want to have plans for, and then maybe do 70-30 so we can get Kevin Feige paid a little bit more? Then Sony would probably, I bet you anything, if they said that, Sony would come back to the table and say, all right, that's fair.
That's fair. That's a fair agreement. Let's talk about what characters you can use. Do you want Rocket Racer? Do you want Black Cat? We wanted Black Cat, but maybe we could spare him for the MCU. Maybe, like, what about, more... Obviously, Morbius is in the Sonyverse. They're not going to give him that one. But what if they gave him, they could give him someone else that is comparable. They could give him, Jackal. They could give him whoever. Whoever they want to do. They could negotiate it. But you can't just say we want to sneak in, 50% co-financing and get access to all of your characters. That's shady. That's so shady and selfish. So I've got no problem with making money. I've got no problem with businesses making cash loads of money if we're willing to pay for that. Not at all. But this is outrageous treatment of a coworker, a group of people that were supposed to be working together for mutual benefit. And now Marvel and Disney are very clear they don't care about mutual benefit. They do not care about what happens to Sony. They only care about what happens to Disney, and they're willing to stop working together if they don't get what they want. They're like spoiled children. So that's my take. I'm actually very upset right now if you guys couldn't put that together. But I want to know what you guys think about this, because this is something that's really close to my heart. Homecoming, I'm still trying to figure this out. I'm still trying to weigh the balance because I haven't seen Far From Home twice yet. I want to see it again. But Homecoming is my standing favorite film of a Spider-Man film of all time. I think Far From Home might be at that same level or maybe a little bit better. I really like Far From Home, but I want to see it again so I can weigh that. So for me to say these things, I want you guys to know this is not coming from a place of hating Marvel, hating Disney. I love Marvel. I love Disney. They still make the best films on earth, in my opinion. I love them. And I love having Spider-Man in the MCU. Spider-Man is so good in the MCU. I love Tom Holland. I love his take on the character. I love what they're doing there. Tying, Mysterio back into the MCU and that kind of stuff. His origin, they tweaked it a little bit, but kept it true to the character. It was so good. I don't want that to stop. I don't want that to end. But what needs to happen is not us crying out to Sony. We need to start crying out to Disney and saying, you need to be reasonable. You need to be reasonable, Marvel, Disney. You're already making far more than Sony is. Come back to the table with some reasonable compromise. Reasonable compromise. That's what we need. From Marvel, Disney, not from Sony. They're trying to negotiate. They said 70-30 is what they want. If you see headlines that say that Marvel, Disney came to the table with 70-30, that's not accurate. This whole thing is coming from Deadline, and Deadline made a second article saying, no, guys, if you're seeing headlines that say 70-30 from Marvel, Disney, it's incorrect. Marvel, Disney came to the table with 50-50 or we walk. And Sony came back with a rebuttal saying, how about 70-30? And Marvel said, no thanks, see you later. It's Marvel, Disney. It's not Sony. And that's, I can say it's a fact, but again, that's not completely verifiable. But the evidence here is pretty damning evidence. This is pretty overwhelming evidence. So if you guys, and I'm not talking about my poll. My poll is just opinions, right? A poll is opinion. Numbers are facts. We look at the numbers and we look at the Deadline article and we see what's happening here. We see what is going on here with the 50-50 co-financing arrangement between the studios is what was being asked. And it's not looking terrific. It's not looking awesome. So I'm going to leave this here because I've already gone on for a really, really long time in this video. But I want you guys to do me a favor, okay? I want you guys to read the articles for yourselves. I want you to go in and do as much research as you can and take what I've said with a grain of salt. Don't just take my word for it. But I want you to take my word, keep it in the back of your mind somewhere, put it off to the side, and then do the research. All the links to everything I just cited are in the description. I'm probably gonna have to go back and add the Rotten Tomato score thing for you guys, and then I'll probably have to add the Iron Man one, the Iron Man box office, because I didn't prep those in advance. But nevertheless, do the research for yourselves. I want you to weigh this in the balance. Try to think without your emotions for just a second, and then after you have the facts, then allow your emotions to well back up, and then you can make your own opinion. It'll probably be totally different than mine. It might be totally like mine. It might be exactly like mine. It might be exactly opposite of mine. It doesn't matter how you line up with me. I just want you guys to have the facts. Be prepared. to maybe have your minds changed, or be prepared to find yourself solidified in what you thought at first. So, clean slate and go for it. Boom. I want you guys to tell me down below who you think is responsible for Sony pulling out of the deal, because it was Sony that had to pull out of the deal because it was their franchise. It's their character. They were the only ones that could make that deal make or break. But Marvel Disney was the one that broke the camel's back. Marvel Disney was the one that basically said it's an all or nothing deal, take it or leave it, no compromise. And of course it was a deal that Sony couldn't say yes to. That's ridiculous. So let me know your thoughts. I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen really quick. Let's see if this works. All right, cool. Excellent. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. If this is the kind of content you want me to start talking about and exploring and following up with, let me know in the comments, because that's the only way I'm going to know that you guys want this type of content. I've got lots more Spider-Man videos coming up with fan casting. I've got my every villain in the MCU, which is going to support the idea that Sony has been incredibly generous with Marvel by giving them so many properties already. 9 effectively. 16 sort of, and I'll break that down in another video to come soon. I'm already editing that one, which happened before the MCU Sony split thing, but nevertheless, all this is so new, so recent. I had to put that on pause and do this video for you guys. But anyway, let me know what you guys think down below. And again, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, please. That helps me out a great deal. Also, be sure to hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button. That way you guys can be alerted when I upload a new video or when I go live next time. That way you guys can be a part of the video in the comments. That's really fun for me, and I get to engage with you, and you get to be part of the Stuff of Legends. That's a lot of fun. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Share it with a nerd that is probably heated over this event, and I will see you guys next time again right here on The Stuff of Legends.